Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a scroll to top in React. So as you can see, I have so many images that are displayed in pages. We have a total of 10 images. And then instead of making the user to scroll or using the scroll bars, we can create a button to scroll to the top. So in this tutorial, we're going to create that. And as you can see in the first page, we don't have that button, but as soon as we start scrolling, then the button shows up. So this is what we are going to create. So to get started, head over to this repository whereby you'll see we have two branches. So we have the master branch and the initial branch. So the master branch has the finished code, but the initial branch has the bare bones so that we can add the scroll to top button. So let's get started. So copy this SSH link and then go to your terminal. So I'll create a directory called React and then cd React and then git clone. Then you clone that repository. And then we can code React scroll to top tutorial. We open it in VS Code. And then this is what we do have. Let me just explain. This is a React application. We have our main, which renders our app. It has links to the CSS files. And then we do have the application itself in the app.tsx. And then inside the app.tsx, we have this static array that maps over these arrays and then displays a component called image display, which takes in an ID and an image URL. So if we click and move to that component, this is what the component holds. It just renders a div with an image and a span. And this span is what shows the image IDs. And then something you need to do is to install the dependencies. You can install the dependencies, and then as they are installing, or they have already installed, so that's it for the application. So we have the main application that renders the app, and then we do have the app itself, and then inside the app we have the image display. This is the image display, and then we have this component. So what we can do, this is the finished code, but we can check out to the initial. We check out the initial branch, and then whatever the initial branch has is basically the image display loop, and then the image display just shows the image and the ID of this. And then we have the CSS files. So we style the image wrapper. We give it a height of 100 viewport height, a width of 100%, position of relative. And the main reason of adding position relative is because we want to display this number here relative to absolute to this container. So you can see we want to display this in the relative container. So that's it for it. And then in the index.css, we have the basic CSS stuff. So let's get started. So you can run this using pnpm dev. And then this one will open up in 5174. And then as you can see in this one, we don't have the scroll to top button. So the first thing we need to do is, so for us to add the scroll to top, where we are adding the scroll to top, we are going to add the scroll to top in the image display component. No, we are going to add it in there. So let's first check where do we want to add it. We want to add it here statically such that it is displays on at all times. So in case we added it in the first page, then when you scroll past it, we could not see it. So we need to add this in the application itself. So if we go back, to, so let me open my VS Code. So if we go back, we cannot add it in the component itself because this component is what is getting displayed in the loop of the app. So we need to add this in the application itself. So we go to the application, which is here. This is the entry point for application. And then beneath here, first of all, we need to create a component that will hold that. So we can call the component scroll to top btn. Then use this extension snippet to quickly create a component. And then here we render the component. So we can say scroll to top button. So I hope you understand what is happening. So we are going to create this scroll to top button. And then this button, we are going to style it and in a fixed position. So let's go to the scroll to top component. And then the first thing we need, first thing first is to create a div. This div is what will hold the icon. And we also have, if you check in the package.json, we do have the React icons library. It seems, yeah, we do have the React icons library. So if we go to React icons, and then we search for top, is it called top or Ango top? Ango. Let's try Ango. We can even use this one. We can copy it, go back to our component, and then inside our div, we are going to display this icon. So it can't show up. So let's go back and copy the import statement. And then on top here, we import it from React icons. And then because we need to style this, we can add a class name. Then the class name, we can say scroll to top btn. And then you can give this one, it's not a must right now. So let's copy this class. And then I think we should display this one side by side. So this is our application. As you can see, we do have first is here, is just that it's not seen. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't have the scroll to top. So I'm going to minimize this. So we can go to our index. So we have already created this. We have added it. So if we need to start styling it, because I know it is on the bottom here. So we can go to the app.css. And then after we go to the app.css, we can start styling the dot scroll to top button. So the first thing I'm going to give it is a color. We need to see it. So we can give it a color of white. And then you can see it below here. The next thing we need to give it is padding. So we can give it a padding of like, can you give it a padding of like 0.5 rem? You can even give it a padding of pixels. All right, we do have a padding. And then a background color, we can give it a background color of black. We can see it because we still have the background color here. And then we can add a border. You can say 2 pixels solid white. Then you can start to see it. The next thing is that we need this thing to show in all the pages. So what can we do to make it show in all the pages? We can use the position fixed. So if you do position fixed, it gets fixed on top of everything else. And then you need to specify where do you want it to be fixed at. So we can fix it here or in this side. So let's fix it in this side. In my master branch, I fixed it in this left side, but this time around, let's fix it on the right hand side. So we give it a position. So we say we want it to be at bottom. What bottom do you want? We can use pixels. We can use percentages. I think we can use, let's see, so 50%, 10, let's give it 5%. And then, so we are giving it from here 5%. And then we save. So it is coming to this side. We want it to the other side. So we can give it a right of still 5%. And then you can see it. So it's still small. So we can go back to our icon and give it a size of something like 30. And then it becomes big and then it's displayed on top of everything. So that's the first step. First step is done. So what else can we do? We want, when we hover over this icon, when we hovering means taking the mouse on top of it. So we go back to the CSS. You can see this is the class we assigned this div, and then this is the class we are targeting in our CSS and styling it. So in case you are new to CSS, don't worry. This is just simple stuff. And then something else we can note is that this icon is not right in the middle. So something we could do, we can use flexbox. So we can say display flex and then align everything to the center. So we can say align item to the center, then justify content to the center. So this is a flexbox trick to center down everything. So if we look at this, you can see everything now gets to the middle. So this is the classical meme we get all over the world that you cannot center a div. So we are able to center the icon inside. We can even give it a border radius. So we can do border radius of 5 pixels. Yeah, 7. Let's try 7. Yeah, that looks nice. And then we need to add a hover. So we come here and copy this. And then we do hover. And then what do you want? Whatever it hovers, we can add a background color of something like red. You can add any color you want, but let's add a red. And then you can see our cursor still remains as a pointer we want it to be. It remains as the default, but we want it as a pointer. So we can come and change the cursor to pointer. And then if you check, now the cursor is changing, everything is working as expected. Something you might note is that it is very, very fast. So we can add some transition. So we can do transition of, we want to transition the background. So we can do background, but there's also a way of using all. But for instance, we just want to transition there. We can give it maybe 1 second and then ease in and out. So if you do this, you can see it's very slow, takes time. So that was just to show you, but now we can use something like 0.3 seconds. And then now it looks very nice. So when you click, nothing happens and it is showing on all pages. So the next thing we need to fix is that we need it to show only on a certain period. So we can go back to our scroll to top button. And the first thing we need to do is that we need to create a state variable that will keep track whether this is visible. So we can say visible, then set visible is equals to use state, and then you can say false. So initially it will be not visible. And then there is a trick in React whereby we can say if it's visible, so if visible is true, and render that icon. So this means that if visible is false, this won't return anything. And then you can see it's gone. So if I do visible true, it's here. So we'll use this state variable to control whether it's visible or not. So the next thing we need to do is that how can we know at which point we are at? So how can we know at which point we are at? All right. The first thing we need to know is that we are quite sure that when we click this button, we want the person who is clicking this button to be taken to the first page. So there is a window event that is called scroll to. And then this scroll to, let me just show you. We can add a click event here. Whenever you click on this div, on click, we run a callback function. And then what do we do whenever we click this button? So we call the window. So the window is the whole window page. It has a method called scroll to. So you can see we have scroll X, scroll nini. We have the scroll to. And then the scroll to takes in scroll options. So we need to tell it, where are you scrolling to? So we give it an object, and the first thing we can do is that, so you can see, where do you want to scroll to? And then, so we want to scroll to top of 0. So whenever you are in the first page here on top here is top 0. So you want to scroll to top 0, and then we give it a behavior of smooth. So I can first remove this and then show you. I can remove that and then show you why we need it, because seeing by doing is better. So if you go back to the button, we have said that whenever you click on this button, you run this function, which essentially calls the window.scroll to. We give it where to scroll to, and then it scrolls to there. So if I click, you can see everything snaps. I can also give it scroll to, I can give it scroll to maybe, I don't know whether it will realize 50%. Let's try that. I don't know whether it will be able to execute this. As it won't be able, so it needs the pixels. So we want to scroll to maybe 300. So if I'm in the first page, so if I click, it snaps to the, let me do 500. So if I click, it snaps to 500. So to fix this snappy issue, we need to add something called the scroll behavior. So the behavior, we can say we want it to be smooth. So if I return back my scroll to, I want it to scroll to the top, and the top is 0 pixels. So if I go back, and then now everything scrolls and everything is nice. So you can see, click, everything scrolls fine. So we have the final issue we are going to fix is that in the first page, we don't need to scroll to see the button, right? So what can we do to achieve this functionality? So what we can do is that we need to add an effect, use effect hook. We need to call the use effect hook. This is the syntax of the use effect hook. And then we want it to run initially whenever we want it to run. You said on the dependencies of an use effect. So this is the syntax of the use effect. It takes in a function and optional dependencies. So these optional dependencies specify when this use effect will run or rerun. So whenever you do an empty dependency, it says this use effect will only run on the first render. But in case you add a variable here, it will run on the first render, and then whenever that variable changes, this use effect will be called. So in our scenario, what do we want? We want to add an event listener. So essentially, we just needed to run during the first render because we just want to attach an event listener which listens on the window.scroll-y, right? So the window.scroll-y gives you the value of the scroll position. So currently the scroll position is 0. It goes appending 200, 100, 300, 400, 500, 600. So we can do something like we can create a function here. We can do this. So we can check whether the window.scroll-y, we can check. So let me just console log. Should I console log, or let me just show you. So const pixels is equals to 0. So pixels, now let me use a use state, or I want to show you how the pixels are moving. So what I can do here is to console log. So we need to let's create a function here on scroll is equals to a function. Then you can say, so whenever this function is called, we will console log. We can console log console.log the window dot scroll y. Now scroll. So you want to get the y position, and then so let's call this function, and then we add an event listener, document.add event listener. So you're adding an event listener on the scroll. So whenever you scroll, we run this event, then this one runs the on scroll function. And then something we need to do in a React use effect is that we need to remove the event listener so we can return. So in React, whenever you return in a use effect, whenever you return, this is what will be run when the component is being removed. So we want to remove the event listener on the scroll, and then on scroll. So the main reason I'm doing this is just to show you what happens under the hood. So if I do this and want it to like that, I hope you can see. And then you go to the console. So there's an issue with the key. So let me even go back. So let me go back and show you. So there is an issue with the key. So you need to add a key here. This is React specific. So we add a key there, and then we can start scrolling. So let me refresh. So if I start scrolling, you can see 2, 3, 120. This is the scroll position that I am in at. All right, so you can see at the bottom you have 5096. All right, so this is the scroll position in which I am, that the window is giving me access to. So if I do that, so you have seen that the scroll Y gives us the actual value of the scroll position. So instead of doing that, we can do something like so whenever this function is called, we can check if the window.scrollY, so window.scrollY. Now let me first return to where we were at so that we can see which position is ideal for. We want to see which position is ideal for. So we have 100. We want as soon as we leave the first page, we start seeing. So we can do all right. So we have seen, let's go back. Let's do half of that there. So at window position 240, scroll Y position of 240, we want this button to be seen. And it should not be seen below that. So what can we do? We go back. So we do go back. And then we said we can use 240. So we can say window dot scroll Y. If the window dot scroll Y is greater than 240, let's use 240. Then we can set visible to be true. So this will change the value of the visible, which will render the component, and then it will either show the button or not. And then else we hide it. So set visible to false. So let's see. So you can see the button is not seen. So as we scroll past the middle, we can see that the button shows. And then when we click on the button scrolls to the top, which in turn also triggers this scroll event. And then it sees that this condition is false, and then it moves to this condition and hides the button. So you can see the button is hidden. All right, so we can go to the bottom, click scroll to top, we go to the top, and then the scroll position gets less than 240. So we set the visible to false. And then as soon as we start scrolling, it gets bigger. And then we set visible to true. And that's it, guys. That's how you add the scroll positions. That's how you add the scroll to top button. So this one, you can see it in many projects. So that's it, guys. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and share with your friends. Thank you.